Okay, Shalom Aleichem, Chavra. It's wonderful to see everybody. This Shabbos was Parshas Beshalach. It happens to be that there is what to talk about in Parshas Beshalach related to everything that we're talking about, and I'll tell you a Maisa. Maisa Shaya. This I heard from Merav Rabbi Rav Moshe Stav Shlita, who told us this Maisa from when he was in yeshiva. I think he heard this in the name of his father, but I don't remember 100% in whose name he said this. But in 1917, when the Balfour Declaration happened, so we've mentioned before that in Europe everybody was excited in different ways about this. Famously, as we've noted, Avnei Nezer said that this is a very clear indication that the Shalosh Shavuos, at the end of Maseches Ksubos, that period is over, and that the Jewish people that were prohibited from re-exerting our national independence and making our way to Eretz Yisrael, that Shavuot, that Isser is now over, because the Muslim have given us Rishus. They said that we are allowed to go back to Eretz Yisrael. That was the origination of the Balfour Declaration gave us clear Rishus. There were others that said you didn't even need the Balfour Declaration. But Pashtus is that from that point in time, many of the Chachamim, the Tzaddikim in Europe were very excited about Jews returning to Eretz Yisrael. That was the approach of most of the Rebbeim in Poland. In Hungary, there was very different. In Munkac and in Satma, they thought that this whole thing was Ma'aseh Satan. That was the Mahalach. The whole thing is Ma'aseh Satan, and it's all against Ratzon Hashem. And we spoke about a few weeks ago. We spoke about the Chafetz Chaim's approach to it, and Ma'aseh Shai that they went to go speak to the Belzer Rebbe. They asked the Belzer Rebbe what he thought about the return of the Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael as a result of this period of time of the Balfour Declaration and everything surrounding it. And what'd you say? The Belzer Rebbe.
Which?
This is the
original one.
Not it was Rabbi Yisachar Dov. Rabbi Yisachar the Marid. I think so. I have to remember. Okay. They asked him what he thought. And they were nervous to ask him because it was terrifying to ask the Rebbe what he thought about political things, because he could jump down your throat about it. You could get upset, either because you're wrong, because you're right, or because you. So they tried in Yonah D'Yoma, what do you think? So it was around Parshas Beshalach when they asked this question, and he opened up the Chumash, and he asked the question as follows. He said to them, after Klal Yisrael were out of Mitzrayim, after they had already finished, they were 10 Makos. They were out of Mitzrayim. And then, Pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardened Paro's heart, Vayirdav Acharei B'nei Yisrael. Paro chases after the Jewish people. So the truth is that this question was first asked by the Ibn Ezra. At least we have in print from the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra asked the question, why did Hashem do this? End of the day, the Jewish people had already left Egypt. They were out, finished. We are on our way to be Mekabel the Torah, on our way to Eretz Yisrael. We're on our way. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is bothersome from the perspective certainly of the Rambam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do Nisim for nothing, for purposes. What is the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of Kriyas Yamsuf?
To show the Jews the power of Hashem.
I'm saying.
To show the power of Hashem.
Good. You have 10 plagues.
Okay, that wasn't enough.
So then the question is, okay, so the Kriyas Yamsuf was enough. What's the?
To get rid of the Egyptians once and for all.
You could have done that in Mitzrayim. I mean, but the point is that if the goal of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to leave, they left.
So what's the reason?
You know what I'm saying? Meaning, you could say that it goes forever. You're and they crossed Yamsuf, and then the Egyptians came out the other side, and then they chased them again all the way to Har Sinai, and then you could go forever.
Once he didn't take them to Eretz Plishtim,
yeah?
no other way except to be Yamsuf.
Fine, but then why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu...
How was he going to cross them?
Good, but then why did the Egyptians have to chase them?
Why the...
HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the Egyptians chase them.
to go back to Piachiros for the Egyptians.
Yeah, I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Paro chase them. First in the pasuk, yeah.
Build up their confidence.
Yeah, confidence. Left. They have emunah. So I'll tell you what. Hold on, I'll tell you what the Ibn Ezra says. The Ibn Ezra says, I have no idea. That's the Ibn Ezra's answer. He says, I don't know. The Ibn Ezra answer, he says, Pastor says, I don't know. Meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows why he did this. He says it's not mefurish in the pasuk. From the text, you cannot say that why HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this. Said the Belzer Rebbe as follows. I'll tell you what. I don't know if he quoted the Ibn Ezra, but he says, I'll tell you what pshat is. Because the pasuk begins, who took them out of Egypt? Paro. Meaning the point of the 10 makos was to get to the point that Paro in pajamas in the middle. Everybody knows about Paro's pajamas. It's also not the pasuk. I don't know what Egyptian style pajamas were. Did he have like the cap without he had the old school? I don't know. What were ancient Egyptian pajamas? Basically. Did he have like, colorful cartoons, animals? Yeah, I don't know. Must have had cool pajamas. Everybody knows about Paro's pajamas. But the Pasha dinosaurs, with at the same time as the Egyptians, the pyramids, and this, okay. You have to talk to the fundamentalist Christians that that Noah had dinosaurs on the ark. It's fun. There's a museum like that in the whatever. Paro in pajamas in the middle of the night. He finds Moshe and Aaron. He says, "Get out, take your people and go." So Bnei Yisrael said, "Woo, it's time. He gets man. Let's go." Ese yofi. Vayhi b'shalach parasam. Who took them out of Egypt? Paro. Said the Belzer Rebbe, you will never be free if it's with permission. You will never be free if it is with permission. Meaning if a cherus is dependent upon the reshus of someone else, then you're not free. You said the Belzer Rebbe, so why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu have to do this? So that Klal could see, not that Paro took them out of Egypt, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them out of Egypt. That's it. Because for as long as they still felt that Paro was the one that set them free, so Paro owns them, he gave them freedom, now you mechuyev to Paro. One day he's going to call you, he's going to say, I didn't have to do it. Now you owe me. Ada Yom Hazeh, which is why, and somebody was asking about Gog and Magog a little while back, at some point in time, there will be a moment, and I want to be very clear about this. This is the Ramchal Beferish, and you see this in the Shloah Kodesh. Everybody that talks about this in this Maharal, everybody that talks about this Inyan, it says explicitly that at some point in time, the world is going to say to Klal Yisrael, you don't get to live in Eretz Yisrael. The whole world, including America. You don't get there. You don't get it. That doesn't belong to you. It belongs to someone else, or you have to give it. It's only because we support you that's why you are there. And at that point in time, Klal Yisrael is going to have to say, no. With all due respect or with no due respect, no. We're here because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that this is where we belong, that this belongs to us because kacha. That's the Avtacha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made to Avraham Avinu, that we have been fulfilling throughout generations, through Tefillah and through Ma'asim, getting us back to that place where Ato Echad, Shimcha Echad, Mi Kamcha Yisrael, Gai Echad, Ba'aretz. Ba'aretz, that's it. It was supposed to be there. That's the goal. Now, why do I introduce with this, aside from the fact that it's Parshas in the Parsha, it's also current events. It's also very much current events, because we spoke last week about the clash between the gods of the world in Milchamas. And then the question arises, well, when the nations of the world go to war against each other, that is effectively taking the gods of the nations out of the world. What happens when the Jewish people go to war? What happens when we're fighting? The whole world is now in a tumult. Is America going to attack Iran? They're not going to attack Iran. Is Iran going to attack Israel? Is Israel going to preempt that? What does it mean when Chayalei Tzva Haganah Yisrael, where Jewish soldiers go to war for the Jewish people? What does that mean? So if you take a look,
When the Chayalei Haganah goes to war with Jewish people or against?
no, I mean on behalf of the Jewish people. That's what they do. That's what they're doing. Take a look at Ois Beis on the sheet that you have here. It's not the first page, the second page. You see Ois Beis. Top of the page it says Beis. And Rav Kook tells us the following. If you want to understand where we're holding and what are the wars that the Jewish people are fighting. So Rav Kook, Anu mistaklim b'deres arishonim ha'mesuparim b'Torah. We look at the ancient generations, the ones that they tell us about in the Torah. B'neviim of Ksuvim, from the Neviim, from the Ksuvim, the Milchamas of the Jewish people. Oisam haderes shahayu asukim b'milchama. Those generations that were engaged in, that were involved in wars. This is last week's parasha. Tevi lachem ba'Amalek. Go and fight the war against Amalek. And that 40 years later, we're going to fight wars against Midian. And we're going to fight wars against Sichon and Og. And then Yeshua is going to fight wars against 31 kings of Canaan. There's milchamas that the Jewish people are going to fight. And David HaMelech fights wars, Shalom HaMelech. And the only one that doesn't fight any wars is Shlomo HaMelech. He's zeicher to not have any milchamas. By the way, the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Shishim Gibarim Saviv Lav Mi Gibari Yisrael Kulam Achuz Echarev Melum Milchama Ish Chaber Yerech. So, right? So, who are the Shishim Gibarim Saviv Lav? What does it mean? 60 soldiers that surrounded Shlomo HaMelech. So the Ibn Ezra says on that pasuk, he says Shishim Gibarim Saviv Lav. It's not 60. It means 600,000. That Shlomo HaMelech's Malchus was surrounded by the army of the Jewish people since the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. 600,000 people that were in the army of Moshe Rabbeinu and Yoshua ben Nun that conquered Eretz Yisrael. It came to its fruition in the days of Shlomo HaMelech. Meaning he had an army, they just didn't have to fight. His army was hundreds of years old and multiple generations. Those are the Shishim Gibarim. That's the Ibn Ezra says pshat in that pasuk. But we learn about these milchamas, that these great people in our history, our ancestors that fought these great wars. And remember, Rav Kook is living in and talking about a dar that does not really have Jewish fighters. It's just beginning. The Eitzel and the Lechi and the Haganah and like all these groups that are fighting with the British and with the Arabs and with each other. And there's like these Jewish fighters that are emerging that we never had. We never had Jewish fighters. There was never a Jewish army from Bar Kokhba until like 1948, for real. There was no Jewish army. It's a fascinating thing, by the way, that if you look at Shilas and Tshuvas and Halacha, if you ever want to know where the Jewish people is at in any generation, like you want to get your pulse of like where Klal Yisrael is at. So you open up the Shilas and Tshuvas of that generation, and you see what are the kinds of things that Jews are asking about. Like what are the questions? It's fascinating. Because we have, in every generation, we have like hundreds and hundreds of tshuvas about milchik pans and fleishik pots. It's important. And people wanting to know about mikvahs and eruvs. There's a lot. But you have shilas about whether or not it's mutter to kill civilians during a battle. There's like one discussion of the Maharal in Gur Aryeh discussing the story of Shimon and Levi. And then it's another like 200 years until like the Radvaz has like a 2-liner about collateral damage in war, and that's it. Milchiks and fleishiks we have tons. But like what do Jews do in war? Nobody asked. There was no wars. Jews were involved in battles, but not by our own armies. We didn't have armies. Jews were conscripted into the Russian army or whatever, sent to Siberia, and there was a Jewish unit in the British army. But like a Jewish army, there's no such thing. We didn't have any of it. So Rav Kook is talking about a dar where it's just beginning. What you say? Just begin. Yeah. Yeah. I'm saying you have a Jewish. I'm saying it's not a Jewish army. It's a tip-tipa of a couple of Yidden that are like, all right, well, we'll put all the Jews together. So I don't know if that was good, but like, okay. So he says, who are these people? He says, V'heim heim hagdolim sha'anu mizyachsim aleim biyedidus ugdulas kodesh. The people that we respect the most in Jewish history, the greatest people that we have in Jewish history, are from those generations of the Jews that went to war. Moshe Rabbeinu, Yeshua ben Nun, David HaMelech. So those are our greatest heroes. Those are the greatest Jews of all time. With those Jews. Those are the Yidden. He says, we have to understand that there is this powerful aspect of a Jewish soul that is the foundation of this discussion. As there was this way that the world operated back then, that war was so common. Talking about a world where everybody was going to war all the time. Everybody was fighting with everybody. It says, "Hu garam lehofia es elu hanashamas." The world of war forced Klal Yisrael, Kviachol, not Kviachol, but Kviachol, to produce such neshamas. The fact that the Jewish people needed to go to war meant that great people emerged from Klal Yisrael. Gedolim came from Klal Yisrael because we had to go to war. He's saying the fact that the Jewish people needed a melech that could be also the greatest expression of tefillah, that could be the greatest expression of milchama. Klal Yisrael needed that, so the neshama that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends to the world then is called David HaMelech. Meaning there's a need. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends to this world the neshamas that can fill those needs. That they felt this with the greatest and fullness of expression. Milchemes kiyumam, and the wars that they fought for their own existence and survival, kiyum ha'uma, the survival of the Jewish people. Milchemes Hashem ha'yisah behakara pnimis, it was a war on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that they understood deeply. When Moshe Rabbeinu is fighting Sichon and Og, that's for Klal Yisrael, that's for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when Yeshua ben Nun is conquering Eretz Yisrael, it's for Klal Yisrael, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when David HaMelech is going and fighting Plishtim and Amalek, it's for Klal Yisrael and for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning all of that is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the need for the Jewish people to have this, and he sends those neshamas to the world. Azizim hayu berucham v'yadu ba'omek ha'choshech livchor b'toiv l'asur min hara. And that internal, deeply connected and rooted neshama understood how to traverse the darkness of war, how to choose goodness and righteousness and morality, and how to not fall into the pitfalls of evil. Those were the souls that emerged from the Jewish people. Which is what David HaMelech says, Gam ki elech begetz halmavis lo yirara. David HaMelech spent his whole life with his hands filled with blood on behalf of Klal Yisrael, on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, defending the Jewish people, fighting for the Jewish people, fighting for Malchus Hashem. That was his whole life, that was his whole world. And it's not for nothing that David HaMelech is the basis of our entire Siddur. Meaning, you can't open up a Siddur and Machzor without David HaMelech. Aside from people that are known to say Tehillim every day and finish Tehillim whatever cycles, the Siddur is David HaMelech. That's the beginning that we have of everything is David HaMelech. When we daven that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bring Mashiach, it's Tzemach David. Who is David? David was a Talmid Chacham Otzum, obviously. He was a Navi. He had Ruach HaKodesh. He was the greatest Baal Tefillah of the Jewish people, and he involved himself in Milchamas. That neshama that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent to this world at that point in time, because that's what Klal Yisrael needs. To be able to walk through Gates Halmavis, lo yirara, and to not fear any evil. Medrash tells us that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends through the Navi to tell David that you don't fight, you don't go to war, you don't attack until you see the trees moving. We won't go through the whole Medrash now, just in the interest of time. David HaMelech is standing there with his whole army. He's got the whole group, like old school, ready to engage in battle. Everybody's got their spears or their swords, their shields, whatever it is. And the army is approaching them. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And the Chayalim look at David and they say, David, maybe we should do something. David HaMelech says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, we don't move until the trees move. Ani mechakeh. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Another 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds go by. They're over the mountain, they're coming. Minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes go by. David, if we don't do something, we're all going to die here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't let. Until we see the trees move, we don't move. Chazal say that the army was within 4 amos of them, the trees moved. David HaMelech goes, now. 4 amos, you know what 4 amos is? Not 4 amos is. You have, imagine that you have a pit bull charging at you, it's 4 amos away. You're not moving until it's 4 amos away? That's the emunah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid of anything. Nothing. To have that level of neshama. Says the Rav Kook, when we contemplate who these people were. With all of everything that we want, all of the ruchnius that we are desperately trying to recreate and to build into our world, and to re-establish and to rediscover, we are yearning for that power, for that strength, for that life which is so real and so palpable. That which is so strong and so permanent, that they felt. And from this desire, our inner soul and the power of it is becoming stronger, and our strength is becoming more sublime, more refined. And those great souls, those great souls are re-emerging in the Jewish people. Let's say, Rav Kook, when the Jewish people have to go to war, these are the neshamas that appear. Now, who's he talking about here? He's talking about those, in the language of other people, the oisvav, good for nothing, low life, chilonim tziyonim, that neshamas gedolos v'chazakas. Talking about the 1920s, the 1930s. That's what he's talking about. And he says it's getting stronger. You're going to see great souls emerging. People with real power, with real koach, with real strength, that can do things and achieve things and build things and grow things. And that's what's emerging in the Jewish people, the souls of fighters. The souls of fighters. The souls of the neshama of David Malka Mashiach. That's what's re-emerging within this world. And it takes time for these neshamas to pull themselves back into this world and to do something with it. Which is why if you start talking to, and you start talking about, and you start hearing some of the stories from the last 2 years, and you realize what's happening and what has happened and what is going to happen, you realize that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing is he's pulling great souls into the world. Enormous souls into this world. I'll tell you, Ma'aser Shahaya, in the last minute that we have, I was on the first rabbinic mission with the OU to Eretz Yisrael right after, it was like 3.5 weeks after October 7th. And I remember we went to Hebron, and they met with mothers that didn't know if their children were alive or dead, and didn't know if they were hostages or if they had been murdered. Nobody knew at that point exactly what was going on. And I spoke to some of these chavra, and I heard their emunah, and I heard their bitachon, and I heard So I said to them that Chazal tell us that when the Meraglim came to Eretz Yisrael, they came back and they said, "V'gam b'nei anak re'inu sham." We saw this, the children of giants, they live there. And Chazal say that the Meraglim were terrified because they said that this is a land that grows giants. They're worried to contend with us. And that's exactly what Rav Kook is saying here. It's a land that grows giants. Could be in any direction. So I said to these mothers in Hebron, I said, I think we just met the giants. Meaning great Jews. Neshamas gedolos. Jews with enormous neshamas. Which means that if the world is brewing with wars, it's knocking out whatever gods exist for other nations. But if Klal Yisrael is going to war, so this is Leman Hashem Yisbarach, and the mechanism and methodology by which we are matzlich in this milchamas is what it was Kimei Olam, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends into this world enormous neshamas, big people, to be able to deal with these things. And they might not look like the art scroll illustrations of like Yoshua ben Nun with a stromal. It might not look the same way. You understand? It might not look like, that you go with a bow and arrow and a stromal in the back. Maybe it could be. And we're seeing that too, by the way. We're seeing that too. But lav dafka. Lav dafka. There's anything wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Lav dafka. But that's what our generation is being zeichet to see. Which means that if there's milchamas that are going on and they're talking about what's going to be with the next whatever, just know, says Rav Kook, that neshamas gedolos are coming to the world, and Be'ez Hashem we should be zeichet to meet them.
Amen.